10 minutes, and what I would like to do is really try and make this less of a commercial and a little more of a case study. Most of you that know me know by training I am a finance person, so there's a little math involved. I know it's late in the afternoon, I'll try not to make it too boring, but Worthington Industries, for those of you that don't know the company, started out here in Columbus, Ohio in 1955 as a steel processor. Mr. McConnell founded the company in his garage. He got a $600 loan on his car. And when we made the decision to do this, we were a $5.5 billion company doing about $550 million of EBITDA. So it's a true American success story. Worthington is run by our philosophy, which says we're in business to make money for our shareholders. But it goes on to say people are our most important asset, and we're a golden rule company. We want to treat others the way we want to be treated. And so that is the way we've run the business. We've been a best places to work company for 12 years running here in Columbus. We were voted Newsweek's top ESG company, and we are a big contributor to worthwhile causes in the community, giving over 1% of our profits every year, and most recently a $7.5 million donation to Children's Hospital in conjunction with the McConnell family. So why in the world would you walk in to John McConnell's office and say, we want to break this up? That was, I've never had a bad day at Worthington, but that was an interesting day to say the least. But it was absolutely the right thing to do, and I'm going to just walk you through some of the dynamics. But one of the interesting things, and we're here today to talk about supply chains and the resiliency of supply chains. The supply chain was actually a driving force in having us make this decision when we did. And I'll tell you a little bit about that. Do I have slides? Yeah. Oh yeah, there we go. So we are basically two companies today. We're two publicly traded companies, but the original business was steel processing. And you can see here, it doesn't have the revenue, but it was a little over $3 billion, $3.5 billion in revenue, I think, during COVID, $250 million of EBITDA. And the big difference here is $1.8 billion of invested capital. So one side of the house uses almost $2 billion of capital. The other side of the house uses $800 million of capital. And when you understand the two businesses, Worthington Steel is primarily a domestic steel processor, US and Mexico, 30 facilities. They buy steel from the mills, they process it, and then they sell it to just-in-time manufacturers that are making automobiles, construction, agriculture, so think all the auto manufacturers, John Deere, Caterpillar, those types of companies. During COVID, does anybody know what happened to steel prices? Like everything else, they went up, they tripled. So hot rolled coil went from $500 a ton to $1,500, almost $1,800 a ton. So we've all of a sudden got all this capital tied up in this business, and that takes the returns down for our shareholders. And so as a public company, because we have not only demand volatility, we also have price volatility. And so what ends up happening is a steel company trades at like 6 to 8 times EBITDA. The other side of the house, because it uses a lot less capital to make the same amount of money, about $1.5 billion of revenue, it should trade at twice that, 10 to 12 times EBITDA. So there was an opportunity to revalue the company as a consumer and building products company. And so that was when we made the decision to go ahead and disrupt ourselves and do the right thing for our shareholders. But the other interesting part is, and I'll talk about it, is the supply chain for Worthington Enterprises is very different, and we're doing something that a lot of companies aren't right now. I do want to mention just a couple of non-negotiables. When we decided to do this, we set out on one page sort of 4 or 5 things that were non-negotiables as we embarked on this journey. One was the philosophy and the way we treat our people and incentivize our people and pay our people wasn't going to change for both companies. That's core to what made us successful, and that's what we believe will make us successful in the future. The second was everyone has a job. We don't want to do something like this and have our employees be impacted. And in fact, I don't know if Kenny's still in the room, but we created 50 to 60 jobs, and we didn't ask for any incentives. You're welcome. And one of the third ones, which is important too, is our corporate structure and the corporate functions. The one related to supply chain being purchasing, were going to be fit for purpose. And so there were going to be changes made to the way we operated the businesses as a result of the separation. So how do we do? This is the math part of the presentation. The day that we announced the separation or before, we basically were trading at $52 a share. We were about $2.5 billion of market cap. In February, and today it's actually a little bit higher, but on February 28th, Worthington Steel was worth $1.5 billion, and Worthington Enterprises was worth $3 billion. So essentially, we created $2 billion of shareholder value by doing this. Now, $500 million of that was actually the market. We did get some tailwinds from a good stock market, but a full $1.5 billion was just multiple expansion by separating the companies. So the math worked. That's great. Now, what about the company's future? Because arguably, this happens once. I jokingly like to tell people I don't have a lot of, $1.5 billion ideas for the company, so now we got to go make money the hard way. So the company that I work for today is Worthington Enterprises, and we have rebranded, and we talk about ourselves differently because we are different, and importantly, our supply chains are different. We're a market-leading designer, which is new language, and manufacturer of innovative building products, consumer products, and sustainable energy solutions. I really wanted to raise my hand and thank Brendan that was up here because they're a customer. We have our products in the Intel project, which is great. I love supporting local companies. That's fantastic. We actually, I'll tell you a little bit about some of the products that we make. We make that little guy on the left, a Coleman camping cylinder. We have 2 plants here in the US that make 55 million of those a year. We make this ceiling that's in here. We have a partner, Armstrong. That's thin, light gauge, roll form steel. And we make metal framing. So those are all construction and related products. The business was built as a steel processor and then products that consume steel. We actually got into the cylinder business in 1972. We bought a business on Kinnear Road and Olentangy River Road from Lennox Corp, if you remember that name, that made refrigerant cylinders. That's how we got into the business that effectively formed the foundation of Worthington Enterprises. Today it's a mall with a Target and a movie theater, which is kind of interesting. But what we are doing today that's different and why the supply chain matters is we're building risk mitigation and flexibility. So our business today, we're principally a manufacturer of products here in the US and Europe. And what's changing for us is we are becoming a much more innovative company. We want to be world-class at innovation. We want to understand our customers and design world-class products that our customers want and will pay more money for. And so how are we doing that? Well, I don't know what happened to my slide here. The 3 companies that were, there we go, here on the right, these are the last 3 acquisitions that we've done. What's different about these, we actually don't make any of these products. And that was a big deal for us when we started buying companies that don't make things. And that doesn't mean we don't want to be a manufacturer. We do want to be a manufacturer. But the way we want to go about this is we want to design new products, and we want to have the flexibility to use third parties to make those products in the beginning, so we don't have to deploy a lot of capital. We can keep our costs down. We can tap into expertise that other people have. And ultimately, when those products are successful, then we can deploy capital to build plants, hopefully here in the US, hopefully here in Ohio, and be a successful manufacturer. And so it's interesting that when I think about reshoring, I think we're incredibly well positioned for reshoring because we're principally a domestic manufacturer today. But we're also building flexibility using other third parties. We're using companies in China, we're using companies in Taiwan and Vietnam, we're actually using companies in Dayton, Ohio. So it's not just international, overseas, low cost, it's wherever the expertise is, so we can design the products, make them using third parties, and then bring them in-house sort of down the road. And so for us, we've got 2 unique businesses today. They're very different, and their supply chains are very different. And while there was an incredible opportunity to create value for our shareholders, we are now changing the way we operate our businesses and our supply chains, importantly, to create flexibility, reduce risk, and hopefully generate more shareholder value in the future. So thank you for your time. I appreciate it. It's great being here.